Welcome to the Amazing Authorities Podcast, where game changers, visionaries, and category leaders share how they built their brands, platforms, and global influence. Your host is Mitch Carson, international speaker, media strategist, and creator of the Instant Authority System. If you're ready to learn from those who've done it and want to become the go-to expert in your space, you're in the right place.
Jenn Johnson is in the house. Welcome, Jenn.
Oh my gosh, Mitch, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to our conversation. We chatted a little bit before we went into record mode just to break the ice, and the ice has been broken. And we jumped right in with your background being an ER nurse, emergency room nurse. You have stories. You shared a brief one that I hadn't heard that's still making my knees quiver just a moment ago. And, but your topic is intuition as a nurse. And maybe if we have time, you can share one of those bold topics, for lack of a better descriptor.
100%. Are we PG-13? Are we R-rated? How far am I going?
We can go, let's keep it PG-13 for now. But we can go, when I think R, for me, content of R is highly sexual, and I don't think we're going to go there, and or violence, I think, is where R goes. Those two things. So
Fair enough. Yeah.
I don't think we're going to go down those paths on this call. I don't think I ever have an interview, but we can certainly go on to what humans do that will evoke the emotion and the laughter we're both experiencing at the moment. When you ask about our content, we can delve into that later. But let's get right into, tell us about your book, because I love interviewing authors. Why don't you show the group your book and tell us about it? Nursing Intuition. Okay.
Nursing Intuition, How to Trust Your Gut, Save Your Sanity, and Survive Your Career, was born out of COVID. So COVID happened and I broke 100%. Shouldn't have been nursing, completely out of my mind, sleep deprived, anxious, depressed, the whole gamut of emotions, as many of us, if not all, faced during that time. So when the attorneys came around, because everybody was offering services and gifts and this kind of thing, the attorneys came around, at least in Ontario, and said, hey, we'd like to offer our services. We'd like to do everybody's wills for free. And at the time, you couldn't help but think, oh, I'm not expected to survive this. Gotcha. So if I wasn't already in a bit of a spiral, that really kicked it into overdrive. And so I got to thinking, I chose to continue to go into work day in, day out. Everybody had the option of not going in. And, thinking about it, my kids were 4 and 5.5 when everything started. And I thought, okay, well, if something happens to me, if I'm intubated or I die or whatever else, how do you explain to kids that mom chose to continue to go to work? So I went into it and I thought, well, why don't I write down my good stories for them? Those times that I really helped and I was where I was supposed to be and all these kind of things. It'd been about 14 years at that point. So I started writing down the good stories, had a good couple ones. And without me realizing, I slid very quickly into the deep, dark, never discussed things that I'd seen and done through the years also. And after about 6 weeks of nonstop writing, I kind of took a step back and went, what am I going to do with this? I don't know if I want my kids to hear any of these stories now. But there's got to be something to this. And was listening to So Llewellyn, who's a metaphysical publisher in the States, was having online book fairs, and the authors would come on and talk about their books. And the one that I happened to catch was Intuition at Work. And I thought, intuition at work, like I use my intuition every day at work. And it was just such this like light switch moment going, I need to go back and look at those stories. And sure enough, every single story had some sort of element of intuition as to, did I trust my gut? Did I not? Did I say something? Did I not? And was I believed or was I not? And so I kind of thought, all right, well, what are the chances that there's actually science behind this, peer-reviewed, evidence-based within the last 5 years, the whole kit and caboodle? And sure enough, there's not just a ton of information on intuition, but specifically intuition in nursing. And so I thought, well, I think I was led down this path for a reason. So if somebody's going to be the one to ring the bell and kind of put this forward, let it be me. And that's what's been the push for all of this since. So it's kind of been me going on podcasts and teaching and sharing my horrific stories and just kind of letting the conversation be open to being able to teach intuition to new nurses.
Wow. Well, that's a lot. And I have to ask, because I know the viewers are going to be as curious as me. What are one of the stories in there that might make us smile, laugh, giggle, or think, wow, could push under the R category?
I mean, there are a couple of patient stories where they passed and that kind of thing, but probably the very first chance that I got to figure out that I was using intuition was there was a mother who was having a scheduled C-section, and I'm the student, I'm in my last year of nursing school. They've put me at the head of the bed to kind of hold the spot until dad can come in. And so we're kind of talking back and forth while everything's happening. And all of a sudden, she starts talking about seeing God and talking to him and being at the cabin in the woods, which I guess was what their cabin, and all of these things. And I'm going, whoa, what in the world is happening here? And I hear the anesthetist kind of over top my head. He's yelling something, and the alarms are dinging, and I can't figure out what's going on. So turns out when they finished, when they took baby out, her vitals kind of started to change and she wasn't doing so well. They put on the dressing and she coded. So her heart stopped. And it was the very first code blue I'd ever been a part of. So of course they put me to the corner of the room and said, just call the code blue and we'll do everything we can. Thankfully, mom was revived and shipped off to a different hospital. But before she'd lost consciousness, she had looked back and called out to the baby, who I didn't realize at the time also was being resuscitated.
Mm.
And it wasn't until baby cried and she said, the name of the baby, which I don't know if she'd talked about with the husband or not, but all of this happened so quickly. And so she was transferred out to a secondary hospital. And, you're the new nurse saying, oh, everything's going to be fine. It's all right. Don't worry about it. And we learn later that day that she did die, but baby was still okay. And it was just one of those things where I'm like, but I told her she'd be okay. And leaning into that, and so they had sent me home, and I'd kind of taken the night to think about it. I said, well, I was the last one to hear her talk. I was the last one to hear her talk about all these really random things and the God angle and she heard the baby cry and she called out the baby's name and all this kind of stuff. Woke up in the middle of the night, wrote everything I could remember down, and then the next day went back in and found the family in the NICU and said,
What's a
I
Nick?
just need you. Oh, neonatal intensive care unit. So where
Okay.
the fresh babies are kept, if they're too young, if they're premature, they have breathing issues, they're kind of kept over, and it's a specialized unit. So went up there to find the family, and gave everything to dad and explained to him what had happened, because he never got to come in, so he never got to talk to her again. But it was that moment that it was like, there's more to this than what I really think is going on. And I've actually kept in touch with the family. And so Babe is, I think, turning 18 this year.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and dad I'd sent him the book prior to actually publishing, just to say, like, hey, if you want me to, if is the story okay to come in? I've changed some things, but like, is the story okay? If you want it out of the book, I'll take it out of the book. If you want me to quash the whole book, I will quash the whole book in an instant. And thankfully, he was just so thankful that somebody had remembered her and their story, and that it was going to continue on. So it's ended up being one of those moments where you kind of look back and go, "No, I was meant for this." It's hard, but I was definitely meant for this.
So that was you were still a greenhorn nurse at that
I
point.
wasn't even graduated. I was still a student.
Oh my gosh. And how did you deal with death. I mean, you were a young woman at that
Yeah.
time, well, and inexperienced with that. How did
Yeah.
that affect you?
She's stuck around. I mean, I still feel like she's kind of always a part of me and what's going on, but it's one of those things where this is where we do need to start talking about and bringing these things forward, because nurses don't talk other than 2-minute generalities usually with other nurses. So we need to start talking about grief and how to process it, because it took me years to process it, and a global pandemic.
Sure, sure, sure. Well, so you wrote this book and it's about intuition. Tell us more about what that means to you.
Yeah, just trusting your gut. So
Okay.
everybody in the world knows that sensation that, something's off or it doesn't feel right. Are you explaining it like, is it a gut feeling? Is it just an idea that pops into your head? Are you getting the sensation that you're in the wrong spot, wrong place, wrong time? There's lots of different ways to feel it. It's all a matter of just, are you giving it any space to actually listen to it and give it a little bit of validation? Um, Us as females, anybody 12 and older knows this feeling intimately. You walk into a crowded bar, you see a guy across the room, and it's just an immediate nope.
Okay.
No context, has never talked to you. It's just an immediate, absolutely not. I don't know what that guy's deal is, creep factor, whatever. But it turns into, if your life's in danger, you're going to listen to that instinctually. But take that into the workplace or somewhere else where it's a little bit more, it's not life or death. So you tend not to, you tend to just shove it aside, and you're like, I just might not be feeling well. I don't think that that's really true. I'm going to push through, and then things happen. And if you don't know to learn from it, you kind of end up just repeating the pattern.
Well, let me ask this. With your husband, was it an immediate yes?
Yeah.
Wow. All right.
To be
Inquire.
fair, to be fair, I had talked to him for a solid month, like every day for a solid month before actually meeting him in person. It was
Over
just a
the phone?
one-off, yeah, just a one-off shot where he had seen a picture of me and he reached out over Facebook, and we had a mutual friend in common, and it just was it. And through oh gosh, 14 years of marriage at this point, there are moments where you're like, I'm out. Look, this is enough.
Well,
But
no,
there's
no
just
marriage is
something
perfect.
there.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. There's always growing pains and learning and struggles and strife. So it's been interesting watching him grow and then watching me grow too.
Well, you've had 14 years so does your gut tell you today that he's still the one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Every now and again, it's like, oh, like you're just more annoyed than anything else. It's the little things, leaving stuff out or niggly things that you're just like, oh, can you not? Like, you're an adult. You got 4 years on me. Why aren't you cleaning up after yourself? But when it comes down to it, it's like, no, that's it.
Okay. He's the father of your kids and
Yeah,
all that. Now
all the things.
yeah, all the things. Your kids are quite young. You had mentioned that. So they're not tapping into their intuition. But how do you manage? You wrote this book on intuition, so I presume also with your education background, you better back the facts. And have you done some
Absolutely.
research on this topic?
Oh yeah, I think I've got 32 references on intuition
Okay,
at
well, that's
least,
pretty thorough. And
and within the last 5 years.
what have you come up with as let's say a checklist or a roadmap to follow when it comes to that? Because some people would say that there's a brain in your gut.
Yeah, 100%. It's just a matter of giving it the time of day. You're going to get little pings, and some are going to be stronger than others. Again, if your life is in danger, if there's more danger associated with it, you're going to get a bigger ping than kind of just I think I might be in the wrong spot, or am I forgetting something, or I just don't know about this person. Things aren't jiving. But if you can listen to it, I mean, truly, that's half the problem is that we're stuck in our phones and we're busy and going from one place to the next. We don't have the time to give it just 2 seconds of recognition that it's even happening, let alone then actually sitting there and deciding that no, I'm going to go forward with this feeling and I'm going to go from that.
How can people follow their gut to success? Let's make it a well, you mentioned relationships. You just know,
Yeah.
okay, that there's a creep factor, knowing in dating. Should people trust that? Or do you think they have to get more data to make a decision?
Yeah. I mean, you always have to watch your biases. Like it's the same thing as using intuition nursing. Like, am I worried about my safety at work because of the presence of somebody that just because they're really tall or they're from a certain ethnic background or because I've had certain scenarios maybe with that exact person previously? Like you always need to watch your biases and just be aware of them. Which again is really hard when you're trying to be introspective and going, okay, well, I watched Cops growing up, so maybe that's really kind of tainting how I'm seeing the world as a 40-year-old female. But take your biases into account, but you can always ask yourself, if I follow my gut and don't go into that room or don't sign that deal or don't deal with that person, what's the worst that could happen? Well, if it's your boss, okay, well, I may get fired or I may seem insubordinate. So what I'll interact with them, but I'm just, even though I'm getting that twinge, maybe I'll just be extra cautious and just take a little bit of extra caution with the scenario instead of avoiding it entirely if there's no other option.
Okay. And where can people find your book, Jenn?
So it's on Amazon, it's in Barnes and Nobles and Indigo. You can find me on LinkedIn if you want to chat there. I'm actually probably most active on LinkedIn, Jennifer Johnson, BSCNRN. You can find me on TikTok and Instagram as any elder millennial, ernurse.jenn, Jenn, and my website is nursejenn.ca.
I'm cracking up. You said an elder Jenn. What is your Jenn?
I'm an elder millennial, so
Elder millennial. Oh my
I'm
God.
on the cusp. I remember a time without internet. I remember a time of fax machines. I
Oh my God.
remember when mobile phones were just coming in, but then I also remember growing up with a computer room. So,
Jeez.
my childhood was half and half of not having the internet and then having the internet.
That is so funny. An elder Gen Z. I can't, or millennial, elder millennial. I'm a baby boomer. I was born in 1960. So
Oh,
yeah, I know that's ancient. I'm probably the age of your
it's
mom.
not. We've already talked about this. You look fantastic for
Thank you.
65. I wouldn't have pegged you at 65.
Well, you've got bonus points. I would send you you and your husband a coupon for a nice dinner, but we're a little far
A
apart.
little
But
bit.
thank you for that. Yeah, I mean
Thailand.
flattery can get you coupons. So I just I
Listen, if
appreciate
I'm
that.
lucky and I get my ducks in a row, I may be able to go back to Vegas
Okay.
to go to the health conference again this year if I'm lucky.
Oh, that's cool. So are you a big fan of Western medicine, Eastern medicine, or something in between?
Holistic. The
Holistic.
West, the West is there for a reason. The East is there for a very good reason. We just need to blend. It's yin and yang. Everything needs to work in tandem with each other. Because that way you can get the absolute best result.
Okay. And naturopathic medicine, quackery
$100%.
or
No, no,
okay.
love it. Love it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, you've
but
raised
be
knowledge.
aware, right, that the placebo effect is 100% a real thing. But if the placebo effect and a naturopath are still getting you relief, what's the harm?
That's true. That's true. Does the mind, this is a way out of the box question. Does the mind factor into illness?
Oh, 1,000%.
Okay.
The emotions, I personally firmly believe that undealt with emotions can manifest physically, 100%. So Takotsubo cardiomyopathy is the broken heart disease. So if your spouse dies, there is a phenomenon where the other spouse will die potentially within a year of what they call broken heart. All of a sudden, their heart will fail because of the grief.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's 100% a real thing.
And I think my heart grew when I got divorced. It was a relief, not
Hey,
a pain.
to each their own. We all have
Right.
our own journeys. Like everybody's gonna do their own thing, and as
Yeah.
long as you're happy and you're safe and you're not hurting anybody else, you do you.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's got their story. I think sometimes it's worth it to move out of a relationship that is not working to do that
Very much.
versus, being a
Yeah,
widower or widower there. Well,
yeah.
Jenn, you've been a great guest, always
Mm.
smiling. I love the energy, the positivity, and you've shared some great value. So hold your book up once again so people can recognize it, know where to go. It's on Amazon, Nursing Intuition. I love the heart. I love the
Thank
design.
you.
Yeah, they did a very good
Thank you.
job, whoever designed it.
They did. I highly recommend. For even being self-published, there are really good people on Upwork and Freelancer and that kind of thing that won't cost you an arm and a leg, and are right there to help you. So highly recommend.
Okay, well, great. You've been a great guest. Thanks for coming on,
Thanks.
and I wish you the greatest of success.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for tuning in to the Amazing Authorities Podcast. If today's episode inspired you, take a moment to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It helps more experts like you rise to the top. For behind-the-scenes access and free resources to boost your authority, head to mitchcarson.com. Until next time, stay amazing.